Are you connecting all the dots in connection with your health issues? Join me today as I take you through the exact steps that one client took to regain her self confidence, rebuild her life by changing completely her health outcomes. Right? So, if you like what I have to say, make sure that you click on the link and schedule an application call with me for my immersive and transformative coaching program, 6 months coaching program called Healing from Within. And I stay till the end, so I'll give you some more details about that. So, the first thing I want you to understand is that you're not beyond help. No matter what health issues you're facing, no matter what your current diagnosis is, or maybe even if it's a lack of diagnosis, which is very common in autoimmune conditions, and you might be trying to get an exact diagnosis, and make sure that you join me in a couple of days for actually another training session on that particular topic. What do you do if you don't get an exact diagnosis, right? But today it's all about the exact steps that this client took and what how it relates to you. So you have to move beyond the right diet and right exercise, and that includes just focusing on elimination of gluten and dairy. I find that this is very common in autoimmune conditions, especially those who are dealing with autoimmune conditions, because of course many of us finally realize that eliminating gluten and dairy is important in healing gut health. And again, enhanced intestinal permeability, which is at the bottom of autoimmune conditions, is coming to the forefront. People are getting to know about it, so they are trying to do something with it, right? And that's amazing because that's clearly the starting point, but that's usually not enough. So, moving beyond the right diet, the right exercise, and maybe being trying to stay positive all the time, is a good first step, but you need to move beyond that to see sustainable and real health outcomes, right? So, I know that you might have tried it all. You might have tried a paleo diet. You might have tried an elimination diet where you're eliminating gluten and dairy. You might have tried exercising. You may have tried thinking happy thoughts all the time, right? So these are typically the very common things that I find when I talk to people. When I ask them that, what have you done so far to help you with your chronic illness, with your autoimmune condition, and this is usually what I hear. But chronic conditions and especially autoimmune conditions are multifactorial, complex disease, and all these different puzzle pieces have to fall in place to see real and sustainable health improvements, right? And that is actually typically what is missing from the picture. So moving beyond the right diet, the right exercise is so important. And stay with me as I take you through what this client did to really move beyond that, because when she came to me, she had already eliminated gluten, she had eliminated dairy from her diet. She was already trying yoga and meditation. So she was doing quite a few things in terms of stress management, but clearly there were some missing pieces of the puzzle pieces, which was not, sort of keeping her stuck, right? We all need to start somewhere, and there is no shame in that. There is, when I was researching for my daughter's severe health issues, and I was doing my own research about functional medicine, etc. I started where I could. I started with eliminating gluten, dairy, and some of the key things that I was told at that time. And I'm talking about 2014. So I did the best that I could with what I knew then, and that's absolutely a good place to start. But if you're sort of stuck today, if you're trying to figure out why you're not seeing real and sustainable health improvements as you are trying to deal with your autoimmune diagnosis, then you need to move beyond that, right? So, exercise is what we are told to do. Positive thinking is something that we are told to think happy thoughts, which is actually, I find it quite impractical, because that's not something that is in line with human nature. But I'm digressing. So, a few key things before I keep moving on in today's session is that you can always get better. This is a key learning for all my clients. In fact, when I ask them for their feedback after they worked with me for a while, this is the first thing. I mean, I find them saying that I did not know that I could get better. And it's not about getting cured completely, it's not about having zero symptoms. It's about just realizing that no matter what my diagnosis is, I can always see a lot of improvements, and it can be in the mind, body, and soul space. Because obviously, some diseases can be incurable in the traditional sense, but there is a way to heal from it, right? And it doesn't have to be stuck at the physical realm of healing. It can be in the mind and soul space as well, and all of it has to sort of come together. And that's probably one of the key missing pieces of the puzzle of healing from an autoimmune condition that I find in most. And I, as I take you in this session, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. So one of the thing that I find also missing, one of the other thing that I find missing is the fact that you need to pay attention to your unique body. Your body's needs are unique to you, and you need to start paying attention to that. Of course, some of the things are the same for everyone, but you need to understand what your body needs from you at this point in time. And I find that this piece is also missing in many cases, right? So I'll give you an example. I had another client who was told that she should have more of vegetable juices and raw salads, when clearly it was aggravating her symptoms and she had to stop having that. And we completely moved to a completely cooked diet, right? So understanding that is important. And the last but not the least is the mindset, emotion, and thoughts, which play a critical role in healing from any chronic conditions. So one, till you get this space, this in place, it can really keep you stuck, right? So our mindset, the approach that we have, because I find that again, when we discuss getting off gluten and dairy, or some such foods which may not be suiting my clients right now, the first thing is that they think about that what do I need, how can I deprive myself of this, right? And we work together to move beyond that deprivation mindset. So we start thinking in terms of what we are getting in return. What are the benefits of actually not having these foods? The benefits can be improved gut health, but more tangible results are improved energy levels, improved lowering of pain, lowering of many of the symptoms that my clients had been having for so many years, in some cases decades, right? This is what, so focusing only on what you're giving up is not the right way. The more effective way is to focus on what you're getting in return. What are the benefits, right? So not seeing the big picture and not being able to connect the dots is what keeps many people stuck, because you need to see all the interconnectedness at play here, which means of course your diet, which means of course maybe lack of movement, maybe high levels of stress, but also the toxins in your environment, your thought pattern, maybe a lot of negative thinking, maybe a lack of gratitude, a lack of self compassion, so many things which are at play here. Mindset, moving from a fixed to a growth mindset. So fixed mindset tells you that nothing is going to change, you can't really change yourself, you can't really change your habits. But a growth mindset tells you that you have to just learn how to make those changes. You have to and you may not be seeing those results yet, but there is a way to do that, right? It's a skill set that you have to develop, and you need to be just guided as to how to do that, right? And this is where the coaching comes in actually, right? You need to know how to understand how you can make those changes in your life, and how to change the patterns that you have sort of been following all these years. And relationship with food, relationship with your body, that's another very very important area. We don't really focus on this. We focus again on typically what foods we are eating. We don't really focus on how we are eating those foods. We don't really focus on whether we are eating in a stress-free environment, or whether we are stressed or we are distracted while eating, what kind of relationship to foods we have. So this, in fact, we follow. I mean, I take my clients through a lot of mindful eating practices. We understand what is our relationship with food, which means that are we having foods to comfort ourselves at most of the times, or are we looking at it for entertainment or nutrition. There's so many reasons why we eat. Um, Nothing wrong with having some of the other things of comforting, etc., but if it becomes a way of life, that becomes a problem, and which is why we struggle to give up foods which are not good for us, right? So just becoming more self-aware on all these areas is really important, and also relationship with our bodies. Because if again, one thing that keeps us stuck is being at war with ourselves, with our bodies, which is why we are not able to give our bodies what it needs, right? So let me sort of share with you, this client who basically came to me with a whole host of health issues, which goes hand in hand with autoimmune diagnosis. And she had Hashimoto's, she had some skin problems as well, and she was lacking in self confidence because of that. She was sort of had to not leave her job, but sit at home and work from home. And this was pre COVID, of course. And she was sitting at home and not being able to work. She had lost her confidence in herself, and because of her skin issues, it shows on your skin, so that doesn't really help matters at all. And She was in some pain, not able to take bath every day, like all these small things, which actually matter, in any kind of chronic illness, because you're dealing with them on a daily basis. And she was struggling with all of this, and she had done quite a bit. She when she came to me, she had already moved off gluten, she had moved off dairy, but beyond that, and she was doing some yoga, etc., but beyond that, she was struggling to figure out what else she could do. And this is where the guidance and the support and the accountability is really helpful, because when we started working together, she realized that just taking out certain foods is only the first part, right? Because as you may or may not know, enhanced intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, lies at the core of any autoimmune diagnosis. And of course, eliminating foods is a very important part of the gut healing process, but it is only the first step of the 5-step process. And most people get stuck, because they're not aware, they remain stuck in the first step of this process. The remaining steps are to repair, maintain, and restore your gut microbiome, right? And so there is a whole process which has to take place beyond eliminating certain foods. Obviously, she was not aware of that, but and what happens is when you eliminate certain foods and you're not getting enough nutrition, that also doesn't really help. Because many people get scared because of the reactions that they have to certain foods. So they go off many varieties of foods, and that also does not help, because that means that you're not getting enough nutrients that you need. So these are all some of the things that she realized that was not helping her, and she needed to move beyond that. Of course, mindset is very important, as I mentioned. So we started doing gratitude journaling. We started doing some mindful eating practices, as I mentioned. That Give me a second. I think there is some that how you eat is equally important. Your relationship with food is important. So mindful eating practices helped her to cultivate that awareness around her thoughts about eating, how she was eating in the first place, which is equally important, and we tend to overlook this fact. Also, her relationship with the body, which she sort of was not really aware of. So she was not in tune with her body. So all of this meant that as we worked together, she saw increased self-confidence, gratitude, self-compassion, self-awareness, emotional regulation, right? So how do you manage your thoughts, your emotions, your mindset, and all of it? When it comes together, this is when the magic happens, and this is when you see huge health improvements, which are real and sustainable. Because the fact is that by doing certain things, you might see certain improvements, but you need to find a long term solution for your health issues, right? Something that you can sustain, something that you truly believe in, and something that is unique to you. So this is what we focus on. And the thing is that anybody can do this, right? Anyone is has the power to find a way to heal themselves no matter what their diagnosis is. They just have to look beyond right diet and right exercise and see what else they are missing out on, right? Whether it's their mindset, whether it's their relationship to food, their bodies. Are they at war with their bodies? I find that this is something which is again very common. Many women are at war with their bodies because they have been told to medicate, suppress their symptom. That's typically what we do in a conventional approach. And sometimes, again, medications are necessary just to stop further tissue damage in autoimmune conditions. So there is nothing wrong in that, but we need to move beyond that. That at best a stopgap measure, not a long-term solution, right? So this client, when she joined the program, she followed the same six-stage journey that I'm taking you through. It's a step-by-step process. It helps you to understand where you need to start, what step you need to take, rather than get overwhelmed with all the 100 different things or maybe 100 different symptoms that you might be facing. Again, the all the myriad of symptoms that many people with autoimmune conditions face, and trying to manage all of them at the same time can become really difficult. But this step-by-step process helps you to understand which areas of your life you need to prioritize, which symptoms we need to focus on, because we are trying to go beyond symptom management, right? Because once you start addressing the underlying imbalances, the underlying dysfunction, what happens is the symptoms naturally start um, improving, right? Or reducing, I would say. So that's how we work. That's why we do not work on a symptom by symptom basis, but we first find and address what are the root causes, what are the missing pieces of the puzzle. It might be that you haven't really explored the fact that toxins might be contributing, or infections, chronic infection might be contributing to this, and you may need to go to a doctor and get some antibiotics. So all these areas have to be tackled as well. And just by having a step by step process can help you to understand and feel less overwhelmed and know what step you need to take, and then after that, which step. So there are 6 stages in this process in the coaching program, which is called Healing from Within. And the first stage is laying the foundation. If you want to build a house which is strong and sturdy and in balance, you need to first lay the a very strong foundation, and this is always where we start, which is typically at the gut level. And we need to understand the interconnectedness, the autoimmunity and the gut connection, and the eating and the sleeping hygiene. Like that's something that again we tend to overlook while trying to do all the other more complicated things, but we need to start at the foundation. Secondly is the focusing on your gut, in the exact things that you need to do in terms of your gut health. What are the autoimmune interventions which can help you with restoring your gut microbiome, focusing on wholesome and nourishing foods which are good for your body right now. Moving beyond symptom management is stage 3, which is again stress, connection between stress and immune health. There's a major connection because 70 to 80% of immune system resides in your gut. So as you start working on your gut health, you see an improvement in your immune tolerance function. And again, know that immune health, good robust immune system is necessary. So just suppressing it is not a good long-term solution, because it leaves you open to other huge problems down the line, including infections, right? So it's more about uh, developing immune tolerance and lowering inflammation. So thyroid health and toxins, which and infections, which may need to be addressed as well. And again, in living in this world, all of us have some exposure to toxins, so we definitely need to address that in terms of personal care products and other household cleaning products, etc. Stage 4 is balancing hormones. So as we start moving down, focusing on gut, focusing on stress, which is also, then that means that you're focusing on your stress hormones, the primary one being cortisol. Then, of course, also thyroid, metabolic dysfunction if you're dealing with that. So all of these need to be addressed, and maybe even some sex hormones. We are not talking about hormone therapy here, but we're talking about nourishing foods. We are talking about maybe certain supplements, all of these other areas and very foundational things that you can do to sort of get your hormones in balance. And if need be, you can always go to a doctor for certain medications. But I find that just by addressing the foundations and putting all of this in place, is most of my clients see a huge improvement. Stage 5 is strengthening your mind body connection. As you would have realized by now, that this is one of the key aspects or key missing pieces of the puzzle. Um, because most people tend to focus on the other parts. But if you want to see real and sustainable health improvements, then you need to focus on your body, you need to focus on your mindset, you need to focus on your relationship with your body, and find different stress management techniques. And last but not the least, focusing on creating sustainable health, because this is not about having me as a crutch, but it's more about having me as a guide and a partner in your healing journey. But moving beyond that, how are you going to sort of deal with any future health challenges? How are you going to deal with, um, you know, any sustainable, and how are you going to see sustainable health improvements, right? So even when you have stopped working with me, I'm very focused on that, so that for the rest of your life, you're completely tuned into what your body needs, what you need to do, what foods are suiting you, how you can change your food intake and your diet depending on what your body's requirements are, or what is your self-care ritual, maybe morning routine, all the things that are necessary to have to continue to see health, good health for the rest of your life, right? So this is the 6 stage journey, step-by-step process, which is in the form of uh, fortnightly coaching sessions, one-on-one live coaching sessions, video trainings, and other checklist protocols and resources as and required. And of course, you get the accountability, because having somebody that you're accountable to makes all the difference. When you're trying to make so many changes in your life, when you're trying to make sure that these are long-term changes, it really helps to have somebody who's in your corner, who's your guide and partner, but also holds you accountable to all the things that you've committed to. So, if you're interested in learning more about this program and getting more details, and make sure that you click on the link and schedule an application call with me for next week. Enrollment ends on the 26th of November. So, make sure that you schedule an application call before that, and I will see you there.